You're here with Nate28 from Crossbeats Production. So today I'm going to do a how-to or a guide on how you can use Maschine with LPX, or otherwise known as Logic Pro X. This is actually a call-out kind of thing to one of my comments that I got, and the comment was asked how I use Maschine and also how I use Logic together. And I guess the reason why it was asked is because in the video that I did for the 8-minute beat challenge that I did, I was using both Maschine and Logic together. So thanks for that, 96 tracks. Thanks for the question, and also I hope you don't mind me calling you out, because I really appreciate when I get questions like this that help me explain things, that the process that I use, or the process that I use to go through and make or create beats. So let's get to it, and I'll go through what I do, and also I'll go through a method that I don't use that frequently, but I find that's quite useful to know, because it took me a while to figure it out, and also a lot of searching through YouTube to try and get the answer to how to do this. So basically, let's get to it. This video, pretty much, I want to explain the first method that I find to take a lot longer to use in creating a beat. It can be useful in a number of situations, but I feel that it's probably more time consuming than the other way, which is the way that I used in my beat challenge video. In the beat challenge video, I actually loaded an instance of Maschine, so I'll show you what I did to explain it. So basically, I've got Maschine up here, and what I've done is, as you can see, I've got the kick track. Actually, I'll just highlight them all. So I've got all my tracks, as you can see here, all down here, and it's in a 8-bar loop. So this is a particular 8-bar loop. It's just out of Maschine. It's nothing special that I've created, so I just want to use it because it's convenient. And pretty much the way I would normally do it is I'd get my kick track, for example. So you can hear the kick track right there. And I would just get this, I'd move it to the side, and I'd highlight the track itself. Sorry, I just should minimize, actually mute those. So, by the way, to mute this, if you're not sure on how to do it, it's just a right click on the one track that you want, or any of them actually. So you just click on those, on the right click, and then you click the left click, and you'd hold that down to export the track, and then you drag it across, and you can drop it straight into your project. So that would give you that individual kick track, and then that would be as an audio file, a WAV or a WAV file, in your project. So as you can see, it's there, and just grabbing this thing, it just makes your audio larger inside the Logic Pro X, so you can actually see the wave form in there. So anyway, so that's the kick, as you can see, and if I played that, you'd hear it, right? So that's the method that I would normally use for every single thing that I drop out of Maschine. I guess in using this, it kind of speeds up your creative process, and it helps you create the beat faster, and it helps you just get things into Logic a lot quicker. The only thing that I guess you'd be limited on if you do this method is altering it in Maschine later on, because you'd have to actually go into your Maschine, bring it open, go into your track, go into do whatever you want to do, hit edit, EQ, whatever you want to do. I don't know, whatever you decide to do with your track. It might not be any of that, so you could actually do all of that together in Logic Pro X if you want to, later on down the track, if you want to EQ or do whatever you want to do to the kick or snare or whatever it might be. Basically, when it comes down to it, I think doing this method speeds the process up a lot more. But once you're done, you're done. You're going to go back if you want to fix it up later on. The other method, it takes a while, but let me explain it to you. So pretty much I'll just delete that track so you can see how I've done this. So I'll just make these smaller, and I'll bring up my mixer so you can actually see the tracks that I've done. So as you can see, all of my tracks are here. I've actually created these in a subgroup, so if you minimize that, it's all in one group, where my drums will stay separate to every other track that I have. The reason why I do this is because, for one, when it comes down to mixing, you want to be able to mix all of your drums on their own, for one, if you wanted to do that. And number two, you want to be able to have a subgroup so you can actually go in and put a compressor on there, for example. So say I want to compress all of my drums together, I can just quite easily just go in and drop a compressor straight onto my subgroup, and everything will be in that one subgroup and will be affected by that compression. So that's the reason why I use subgroups. And if you're into mixing and you want to have other mixing tutorials, I'm quite happy to do those as well. But for now, let's stick to why we use Logic and Maschine together. So basically, as you can see, on this first group here, I've got a VST plugin of Maschine. So that's basically powering all of these instruments here, and you can see these are all just subgroups of that machine, and that keeps going on until I get right to the bottom. So I've got every single track, and the first one is my actual Maschine program. So if I double click on that, you'll see inside of here, I'm just going to close the other one so I don't have that open anymore. Let me just do that quickly so I don't get them mixed up. Alright, so in here I've got the tracks individually responding to what Logic is responding to here. So my MIDI is right here. So if I just single that one out, so if I solo that, you'll hear the kick drum, right? And if you go to the mixer here, everything's responding still. So the reason why everything is still making noise is because everything in here has got MIDI on it, but it's not actually showing the audio is coming out of here because the audio is not actually coming out of here yet until you actually solo that. So you can hear the snare now. So basically, if I open that back up again, I'll just quickly show you, go back to Maschine. So if I open this up, how I did this, and it takes a bit of time to route it, and I think this is the most tricky part out of the whole entire thing, was routing it and understanding how you actually route it. So when you see in here, in Logic, I'll just make this, actually I'll bring up the mixer first off. So I went in and I renamed every single track that's here, and as you can see they all match. So every track I've got the exact same name, so I can never get mixed up and I know exactly what I've got. And I kind of just color coded them in Logic, not really though, but just one color. Anyway, so pretty much with this, as you can see, external 1, I'll just quickly mute them. So external 1 is this track here. It says external 1 there. As you can see, it's group 1 now because I just changed it. So external 1, right? External 2, external 3, so on and so forth, all the way down to 16, okay? So the reason why that had noise is because I took it out and put it separately in here, so that way I could alter it or change it to however I wanted it to be later on. So basically that's the output, okay? So when you go into Maschine, and you'll see it on the side here, there's a little tab at the top here, and it looks kind of like, I don't know what it is, to be honest. It's like a little clock or something, who knows. But obviously it's not, it's the output. So there's the things that you have to do to route it. So you've got your input, okay? So the input is what your host or DAW, DAW, which at this point is Logic, what that is doing to tell Maschine what to do, pretty much. So Logic's telling Maschine that I want these things here played by this MIDI in here. So if I have the MIDI here and that's playing, that's exactly what's happening inside of Maschine at the same time. So the host is basically that. So this is being hosted by Logic here. Okay, so if you choose host, the quickest and easiest way to get that to host is highlight all and hold shift and then click on the top one and then go down to the bottom like so, and then it will highlight all of those, and then you just go in and you change it to host. So that would create every single one of these tracks will now know that I just want the host as, see, as you can see there, it's all host. So it wants the host to be the one that's in control of these. So from there on, I'll change the MIDI. So everything that's played on my keyboard, so if I hit one of these tracks, I'll just unmute it for a second. So if I hit one of these tracks, you can see, well, you can't see I'm playing this, but my MIDI keyboard is what's playing that right now. So my MIDI keyboard controls every single thing that I select in Logic now. See, as you can see, or here I should say. So when I click on these things in Logic, now everything that I click on is relating back to what is in Maschine right here. So you can see that I've got the snare, I've got a snare here, but that's what now responds to Logic. So that's why you use the host as the source. So channel 2, okay, so channel 2, channel 1, channel 3, channel 4, channel 5, and so on and so forth. As you can see in here, this is the MIDI channel that shows on these tracks. Let me go back and show you how I actually created these tracks though, because that's a tricky part. So how you do this in the first place is you get all of the tracks that I got here in the first place pretty much are not existing at the start. So the way I did it, I'll just show you straight from the start. So I created an empty channel strip. I go down to my channel strip here, and I'll go to my instrument, and I'll go to my Maschine 2 or Maschine 1, whichever one you have at this moment. Well, I use Maschine 2. I can pretty much show you how to do the exact same thing in Maschine 1, but it's a lot easier, I think, in Maschine 2 at this point. But anyway, so basically from there, if you want to raise your instrument or whatever it might be that you have, so say for example I've got my drums again, I'll just go down to a similar kind of kit, whatever kit this is. Okay, that's good enough. So we've got that kit, right? And I'll just close that off. Basically from there I hit X on my keyboard because that brings up the mixer. If you want to do it another way, you just go to view, or sorry, window, and you can go down to open mixer, and that'll show you the mixer as well. But for now, let's just hit X. So I've got that as a track. So you're not seeing anything here with this little plus symbol. That's what you want to see at the bottom here, so you can actually create the track. So the reason why it's not showing at the bottom is because on Maschine it has two options here. So the option that you want to choose, this right now is at stereo. So if I was going to play every single thing out of Maschine, it would all come through this one track, and there's no way I could get it out of all these 16 tracks that I have. So the way you do it is go to multi-output times by 16 stereo. So now it'll just think for a minute, and now you can see there's a plus and a minus symbol here. Okay, so with that, you just hit plus, 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 keep hitting plus again and again and again, 16 times, or sorry, 15 times, because it shows you 15 tracks. So hit that 15 times, keep hitting it until you get all of the tracks you can, until it stops giving you tracks. Basically, it'll blank out in a minute once it gets to 15, because there's no more it can offer you on that one track. There's only 16 tracks in Maschine, 16 tracks in Logic. Okay, so as you can see, I've got all 16 tracks. Right now it's saying 31 because I've already done this once, so as you can see they're already there. So it's, this track count down the bottom has nothing in relation to Maschine, just so you're aware. That's only Logic's counts. So Instant 2, which is basically track 1 for this example. Sorry, let's put track 1. Track 1, okay? So we've got Maschine there. Now, if you wanted to, you could go relabel these to make it easier so you don't forget what you've got. But for the moment, I can't be bothered to do all that because it's just too much time to consume. So basically, I highlight this track here right at the end, which is Aux 31, which would be track 16 if you were going to relabel them. And I'll just go across and I will hold down, where is it? Here we go. Hold down Shift once we get across to here. So if I hold Shift and then left click on all of these, anywhere in the brown or the gray space there, and then I'll right click, hit create track. So in there you'll see all of these tracks that should line up for this like that. So you'll have every single track that would have been the same as Maschine, how I did it here. So I have every single track, pretty much all my drums are here, and that's the 16th track just there. So number track 1 is because that's just an aux send, that's a bus that I've created. So as you can see, it all goes into that one bus. So I'd have all these tracks, right? And then to create the way that I did it, you go into Maschine again, and then you have to actually click on the sounds that you want all the way down to the bottom again. Just minimize that and make this smaller so we can see what's going on here. Actually, I might just make this view a little bit larger. So medium view is probably the best view that I found anyway. So we've got all those tracks highlighted, okay, again. So how we did that, click on the first one right at the bottom, hold shift, left click, and that highlights all of them. Okay, so once we've got that, we know that we want all these tracks into Logic as we did the first time. So how do we get the audio to play so it lines up just the way it did here with this other one? Now, the way you do it, the quickest way, is by clicking on this little symbol here at the top, or the top left I should say, and you can see now everything is grouped into this one group. Now, where do I want my audio? I want it to go into Logic. So basically, to get the destination, host, I want this to be the host into MIDI. So right here, my source is the host. So I'll click host, and that changes all of these tracks into host, okay? So now if I just go back and unhighlight them, because I don't want to actually change every single one to all of the one MIDI. So if you can see in here now, track 1 is MIDI 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, until you get down to the bottom, 16, okay? So we've got 16 MIDI, and you're going to see in a minute why this is important. So basically, number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so on and so forth. So number 1 is number 1. Number 2, number 3. And if you ever forget, obviously the numbers are right here, right next to it, so it's kind of hard to get it wrong. So as you can see, number 4. Anyway, so on and so forth. So I'll just show you why I'm doing this. So basically, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. I'll make that 6 just for the sake of it. Okay. So right now, the reason why we're doing this is so that Logic, when you highlight one of these tracks, Logic knows that inside of here is where it's playing from. So then the output needs to also be likewise. Okay, so the output MIDI. And then you want the audio. So say for example, this audio needs to go to external 1. All that external 1 means is this is external. So say I click on the drum, now you can see this is my drum. Okay, so it's green right there. There's a little green. Now, nothing comes out of the next one. Why is that? Because I haven't clicked that I want my audio to come out of external 2. So now it's coming out of external 2. Okay, so say I want to rename these just to be the same as exactly what's in Maschine. Just do it. It's quite simple. Just double click. Control C, Control V, Control C, Control V. Okay, so let's just stick with that for the moment. So I'm just going to do the first, so I'll do the first 6, no, first 5 actually. Alright. Okay, so we've got every single track renamed, and the source is going to the correct source. So kick, kick, snare, snare. As you can see, quite straightforward. Now they're all going there, okay? So quickly finish off and make all of these externally able to cope with the sound. So the sound should be able to go all to each individual track, as you can see here. So I'm just going to quickly do that, and that way it'll stop any issues from happening later on. Okay, so that's number 6, so I'll just rename that. Okay, so every single track I've labeled, and I've done that on purpose just so I know exactly what's what, because when it comes down to Maschine, it's hard to keep track of stuff after you get so many tracks going on at the same time. So basically that's where I ended. Okay, so I need to put that onto external 6, external 7. Sorry, this is just painful to watch, but it has to be done. So external 9, 10, 11, 12. And like I said, the numbers are right next to it, so it's pretty easy to keep track of where you're at. So let me just finish this off. If you've hung in this long, you're doing pretty good. All right, so every sound that I've got should be on its own track playing in Logic, okay? As you can see here. Yeah. What about what's going on here? All right, so those two. Okay, awesome. So every single thing is on its own. It's playing in Logic out of Maschine. Now, the input is all host, but we want everything to be on its own. So as you can see, I stopped at 6. Go back to there. This is this little tab here, input, right? So you want that to be on channel 7, channel 8, channel 9, 10. I mean, like I said, doing it this way, it's definitely a lot longer to do. And as you can see, probably this is why you ask the question, like, what works and what doesn't. I mean, in my opinion, this works, but I don't think it's a very intelligent way of doing it, because you spend so much time routing your stuff that by the time you've done that, you've lost your idea on what you wanted to create in the first place. So anyway, so I've got everything routed. Inputs there. So the MIDI is knowing that's correct. That's from Logic. The MIDI is being from the host. All channels are correctly lined up. Now the output's going to the correct place. Everything is how it should be. Everything's externally now. And basically from there, what I'll do is just show you what I did earlier. Now, if you've done that all correctly, which is what I just did there, I'm just going to delete these because there's no need for them to be there anymore. So let's just delete the whole thing. And this is what I prepared earlier. Yeah, just like that. Alright, so as you can see, exactly the same thing is happening in here. Number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and so on and so forth. Now, everything's externally routed, as you can see, and I'll unmute this, and you can see now when I click on here, as you saw before, this is my bus, so just ignore this is lit up because that's not where the track is. So the track is there. Hit my kick, snare. See, everything's going into Logic just as it should be. Now, the good thing about this, I guess, in a sense, is that you can go back, you can close this, and then you can go and play your MIDI however you want it to be in Logic and never have to think about Maschine again. If you wanted to do this as a method, it's perfectly fine. Like, as you can see, I'm using my MIDI keyboard right now. All I need to do is click on the tracks and they all work exactly how they're supposed to. So, I mean, that's a good way of working if you wanted to just set it all up at the start and you knew the instruments you want to use and go from there. That would be perfectly fine. Now, I guess the cool thing about this is that even with the audio tracks where you have, say for example, I've got massive, right? This is my massive track. I'll just play it on its own. Now, all I need to do is go back into Maschine, which I know is on track 1 in the drums because that's where track 1 was. So let me just stop that for a second. So my drum track is track 1. Track 1 is Maschine. The reason why track 1 is Maschine is because you have to use 16 tracks to create the 16 tracks within Maschine, which then translate to be Logic's 16 tracks. So the way I first learnt it, which was probably right but probably wrong, is that you ignore the fact that this is track 1 and you only use 15 tracks out of Maschine, and you just have to miss out on the last one. But I mean, to be honest, I don't think that's a good way of working. If you wanted to do it all the way you can and just have all 16 tracks into Logic and then just be done with it, and you have a perfect match of every single thing that you have here, and there's no dispute as to which one is what, because you know they're all 16 there. So okay, so the reason why I was saying that is because Massive is in Maschine right down the bottom here. Okay, so if I click on this little tab at the corner here, click on that tab, now I can see that Maschine is there, and that's the instrument that's on track 16 in Maschine. Now, if I wanted to go and edit something in here, I could quite easily just go and change however I wanted to in Maschine and make Massive sounds to be whatever I want them to be, create a different sound if I wanted to, or whatever. So you could just change the phase in here, and obviously it would translate to be what Maschine hears. So let's just isolate that for a second. Now, so we can edit that, change it to anything we want to. Now this is all in Maschine. The only issue you might face by running Maschine in Logic, if you wanted to automate what's in Maschine into Logic, I'm not too sure if there's a way that you can actually do that. I know that if you wanted to automate stuff normally, you'd just go down to touch, and you'd have the parameter and you'd drag that, whatever that parameter might be, and it would do it. But I don't believe in Maschine that it would understand that that parameter is the parameter in Logic. So I guess in that sense you're missing out on being able to edit something like you normally would, because basically, for example, let me just go back down to automation. So if I was to open up a track of, say, Alchemy, for example, right? Alchemy is the bomb, if anyone doesn't know that yet. So say, for example, let me just drop my MIDI onto Alchemy, and let's just play some Alchemy and see. So normally in Alchemy, if I wanted to change something, I could just automate it straight from Alchemy and it will know. Okay, so as you can see, using plugins in Logic and automating them in Logic is a lot easier than trying to automate stuff that's in Maschine within Logic, if you know what I'm talking about. So rather than having a plugin playing from Logic, playing from Maschine into Logic and then trying to automate it, I think that's just a hassle, to be honest. And that's kind of why I don't do it this way. But anyway, I just wanted to show that, you know, that's a way of doing things, and that the downfalls to that as well. So basically from there then, the best method that I've found that I would recommend using is get your track open as a MIDI software instrument, go into there, create an empty track just so it doesn't give you any garbage. Then go down to your empty track, just for the sake of that, click on Maschine 0.2, stereo track. Now previously in my drums that I would have saved earlier, I would just go into this, I'd then open up my file, I go to open recent. So say for example I've got my drums in this never ending track, which is a track I just recently created. Basically I've got all my drums here. I don't even know if I have drums in this track, to be honest. We'll find out in a second. Okay, so I do have drums in there. Alright, so say for example I had my drums, okay? So this is a whole song. And I wanted to just play my drums in tempo with my tempo in here. So as you can see, exactly the same tempo that's in Maschine is what's in Logic. So if I alter that, you can see that they're both changing at the same time. and that makes it a lot easier to keep in tempo when you've got both running at the same time. So I've got that going, both tempoed exactly the same way. Now I've got drums, say for example my drum kit here. I've got the timing set up, so you can see there, just open that up, and this track will be playing exactly the same timing as Logic is. Okay, so in the track that I made on that other beat challenge, this is how I did it. I basically had my drums in Maschine, so I did my drums exactly how I wanted them, and I'll just make this a bit larger. So I make this a medium view scale, so I can actually minimize this down here. So I have my drums here, and I'll just mute that track there. So when my drums are playing, I basically then had my synth open, and I'll just close that for a second. So this is just labeled Maschine. Okay, so I had Maschine, and then I had my Alchemy, for example. Let's just go on an Alchemy track. So the best way I found that it works really well is, okay, hang on, I just need to stop Maschine from doing that. So I'll close this one down. Discard. Okay, there we go. Alright, so now Alchemy is basically just being used in Logic, and then I've got Maschine, so I can use Maschine as a VST plugin. I can use the kick if I want, snare, and so on. So if I wanted to create the track, I'd pretty much get my drums sorted first. I'd create them externally in Maschine if I was going to make it, or otherwise I'd just create by doing the click MIDI inside of Maschine, and then using Maschine as a VST plugin, and that way when you play your track it's always going to line up for everything that you're doing in Logic. Should line up exactly the same in Maschine. So I'm just hiding those tracks just so I can get them out of the way. Now in that track that I created, that's the way I did it. So that way I could just go in here and I'd just highlight this, and then I'd click and I'd drag my audio, and then that way I would just have my drum. As you can see, it's just got the drums there, right? So the drum is playing on its own. I do that with every single track that I want. All my tracks here, I just drop them in and then start editing or layering or doing whatever I desired to create that track at that time. So I just find that that's probably the best way to get something quick and easy to get that into Maschine, and you've got your drum going, and then you just start with your Alchemy or whatever you want. So I just created my Alchemy. That's this one here. So So you got Alchemy basically playing, and you can just create your track as you go, and that makes it a lot easier. So this method I found to be the best out of all the methods that I've shown you in the video. So whatever you want to do, it's up to you, but I think just creating individual tracks is probably the best to get a fast beat created and just get your ideas down onto your track and not lose them in the middle of trying to create stuff, because it's just going to cause issues when your tools are getting in the way of what your actual creative ability is. And I think that's key to creating any beat, is keep the tools out of the way. Help you make a beat by using the tools, but don't make them the problem, because that's when stuff goes wrong. So anyway, I just wanted to wrap this up quickly because it's a long video, and I really appreciate if you've been hanging around this long. So thanks a lot for watching, and peace.